instead of going.
So you check it there just to check it, and then
We have to make sure that's on mute. Yep.
Primary itself, I use the 301. Although I don't like the bridge.
See that little ribbon there? That's what I want. So now we can do this for kicks. Should be out by now.
It's always a challenge. Okay, now. Where do I go to get back on 95?
So,
Yeah, I mean, because I think you go as far as Bowling Green.
Bowling Green. Right. Straight past Bowling Green.
second, which you can do this.
and then
And
you
then
just hit
you just
play
hit
when
play,
you're ready to
and
go.
it'll start. Yeah, it'll start countdown. So I can do that for you.
Well, Ronnie put out that there. None of that should even be argued. What we talked about last week. The numbers, I mean, everything that said here and put out and we're going to put in the paper was all facts.
What's that?
Absolutely.
I'm in Baltimore City, but Caroline County is our neighbor.
I know, but it's a number. What makes it so inconsistent?
It's not. It's not.
You know, because yeah, maybe they do have a lot more poverty, but the offset of the states.
No, they don't. That's okay.
I mean, but the state's the one who's not doing it, right?
Right. Okay.
I mean, we're not calling them out like.
And we're not, all we're doing is printing what's true. Haven't screwed up, haven't mixed up anything. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody other
Other
than
state.
that formula, I think is unfair to us.
Unfair
You know,
to
there's-
unfair to a lot of folks.
No question about it. You know, the poor kids in our county, and we have our share, they work just as much as the poor kids any place in the state of Maryland in my book. And we should receive the same amount. Of course, you're not going to, but it makes me feel good.
Gentlemen, ready?
Whenever you
I call this meeting of Kent County Commissioners to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we observe a moment of silence. Okay, we have the town of Millington is having a 2017 appreciation dinner on Thursday, November 30th at the Community Volunteer Firehouse starting at 6 p.m. One person. Celebration of Children's Holiday Luncheon be held by the Casa of the Midshore on Friday, December 1st at 12 noon to 1 p.m. at the Tidewater Inn in Easton. And their celebration of the miracle on High Street. It's an evening with friends in celebration of the 10th anniversary of our capital campaign for the town of Chestertown. That's going to be Thursday, December 7th, starting at 8:30 with elegant edibles, bountiful beverages. Then at 6:15, Garfield testimonials, and at 7 p.m., mingle and make a wish come true, and then respond to the Garfield by November 27th. All county offices will be closed on Thursday, November 23rd, and Friday, November 24th, in observance of Thanksgiving Day. Surprise of the environment. During the 2017 legislative session, the Maryland General Assembly passed the Senate Bill 1040 of the Environment, Water, and Sewer Plan approval, and Governor Hogan subsequently signed that bill into law. In essence, it became effective October 1st. In essence, it shortens the review time for county water and sewage plan and amendments from 90 to 60 days, etc. However, to ensure that the bureaucracy works, they would like to have any draft plans submitted to MDE as soon as available, so they can get ahead of the review process. We have three sets of minutes: regular minutes, closed session minutes, and liquor minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second, the aforementioned minutes be approved as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. In fact, that closed session on November 14th, the commissioners consulted with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter in accordance with the general provision article, section paragraph 3-305, subparagraphs B and Ms. Merritt discussed the legal matter at length. Mr. Yeager asked if the commissioners were agreeable and conceptually to move forward. We'll hear more about that later. Okay. We have a Class C application for a license for beer and wine from the Main Street, Chestertown. It's a holiday festival which will be in downtown historic district, primarily the 200 and 300 blocks of High Street and on Cannon Street. And this will be held on December 1st and 2nd. This is a liquor request license, require a public hearing. Anyone have any comments for or against the aforementioned application? Approve the aforementioned application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously for Chestertown. Dr. Couch and staff.
What's up? Hi. Boss lady done. Good. See you guys.
For Christmas, right?
Oh, you're over there by yourself. He's in the corner.
Oh.
Sorry.
So, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we should have a PowerPoint. No? No?
I think we're going to start with the audited financial statements.
Yeah.
So we'll use,
Okay.
if we bring that up on the screen, the audited financial. Okay. All right. Good evening. We have before you tonight the audited financial statements for period fiscal year 2017.
Jane,
Oh, I apologize.
you want to run that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just talk from there.
Oh,
Okay. 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 Good evening again. Before you tonight is our audited financial statements for period ending June 30th, 2017. The financial statements were filed timely with MSDE. Our Federal Audit Clearinghouse, which is the data collection form for a compliant audit, is actually due December 31st, and we expect to file this report timely in December as well. Let's see. On page 14, we'll get started with 14, is our governmental statements. I'm sorry, these statements, 159 pages, so I have to scroll through here. I apologize. Okay, on this page, you have our net investment in capital and our net position. And as you can see, our net and then our trust fund balance is $1 million. The employees' pension liability is $2.9 million. The next one we want to go to is fund balance, and you'll find that on page 16 and 41. We ended out the year of fund balance of $1.9 million. It is a decrease of $994,847. Our budgeted expenditures for FY18 was $720. Let's go to page 41. 41. Yeah, I'm sorry here. Let's keep scrolling. Okay, this page right here summarizes our fund balance. A little bit more.
There you go.
Okay. As you can see here, this is basically a summary of our fund balance. The budget reserve is $720. Encumbrances are $126,000. Transportation is at $175,000, and the contingency balance is $500,000. Total of $1.9 million.
So I'd like to spend a little time talking about that because it's just for further clarification. The $720,719 was used to balance this year's budget. It was brought into this year for FY18 so that we could pay the operational costs and develop and basically submit a balanced budget. We are, by law, we cannot run in the red, so that was brought in. It has to be designated in our budget as fund balance. So it is fund balance, but it's supporting operational costs that we have for FY18. 126,000 are the POs that were, that were outstanding, that were paid, and had to be paid out of the fund balance. $175,000 was the amount that we asked the commissioners to approve. That's our fund balance that we brought into this year to help support the lease payments that we had for our buses for this year. The $500,000. So that totals up at that point $801,000 that is currently being used for FY18. The available fund balance that we have going into FY19 is the $397,168. So that is what's not assigned that can be used as directed into FY19. And so we'll further talk about that in terms of what that means. If you look at just looking at this amount right here, you'll see that $720,000 is essentially being used to support the current year budget with savings, money that is not there. So if we go into FY19, we've got to replace that $720,000 with something. I mean, whether it be we don't have it's not supported with recurring revenue. We're paying for recurring revenue costs with the $720,000 out of our fund balance. So going into FY19, somehow or other that has to be supported. So, is there any questions you have about that?
No, I don't agree, but that's okay. Keep going.
How is it you don't agree?
You know, utilization of fund balance, if you want to look at it as from a cash position, is one thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be continuing on year after year after year.
What does that mean? I'm not sure what you're saying.
Each year is actually a standalone financial statement in and of itself.
Correct. But if I'm using $720,000 essentially in fund balance or savings to support what I already have in place for this year, and that money is not recurring in the following year.
Right,
I
it's
don't
not.
understand. I don't. It's not. So it has to be, it has to be replaced by something, or we're going to have to cut $720,000 out of the budget.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Seriously.
The next item is on page 44. That went too fast. So as you can see, on August 3rd, the board approved for the bids for the parking lots, and that was utilized with QZAB funds, as well as the alternative school was renewed that contract. And then on September 18th, the board authorized and negotiated the execution of the cancellation agreement with Reliable. And then on the 20th of September, the board approved the lease purchase agreement of 13 school buses over 10 years. And this included the total cost of the lease, including interest, of $1.4 million, which is payable in annual installments.
Couch, have you had any issues staffing those buses that leased?
Meaning, did we hire drivers to drive on the buses?
Right.
Yes, we are fully staffed as of a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Actually, we have 2 that are currently training, so we should have a couple of substitutes as well. We just haven't seen one board yet, but we just lost a bus driver today going to work for Queen Anne's. So we still should be fine because we have the 2 that are training. But we trained them. But we're fully staffed.
Okay, the next page, page 45, that's going to break down the revenue and expenditures, and then it lists that variances to the right. So the revenues were down than what was initially budgeted for $93,000. And then when you look at the right-hand side on the expenditures, you can see that mid-level administration was actually, we underspent there, and that had to associate with school supplies, school communications, and school travel. And then another one, too, that came in under was your fixed charges, and that was healthcare costs. And that actually came lower than what we were initially told or projected on that.
But is that, does those numbers also change, not necessarily for what they told you, but because of staff changes and savings that happens
Yes.
because of staff leaving?
That's a good point. That was another,
Okay.
definitely. So total variances from budget to actual, you can see it was, we underspent by $403,000. Any questions on that one? That was the ones that I had highlighted. I'm not sure if you had any questions on the other statements.
You were on page 45, right?
44, I think. It's not numbered in
Oh,
statement.
on the next page, I apologize, is the restricted funds.
So we would your audit for FY17.
Motion to approve the audit of FY17.
Already moved and second to approve the Board of Education audit for FY17. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Just a comment, though. I mean, we could go back to page 41 where we talked about the fund balance. If the question was asked, how much money do we have that's unassigned?
397.
I would say that 897.
No, sir.
Well, that depends on what you call a contingency, and that's, a contingency is not something that whether you don't know that you're going to spend it, and it's not specifically assigned, it's set aside for something unexpected. I mean, that's what I've always thought the contingency was.
Right.
To fund something that crops up that you didn't plan for in
Right.
the budget.
And we have old,
100,000. It's
Set aside.
something that unexpected comes back.
correct.
Okay. And then you have 397 on top of that, so
Correct. So, and then what I did share with Pat Merritt, and we were prepared to talk about, since, you know, I heard that you spoke about our budget, so we went ahead and brought out what we've already added this year, what our financial is for this year, what we're expecting to spend for this year's budget, and then what the forecast is for next year, just so that that can play into the discussion as well.
My comments, if you're referring to last week, my comments were not about your budget. And it really didn't say anything about your budget. It had what I think is unfairly the way that Kent County, the formula treats Kent County. That's what my conversation was about. I think when the state of Maryland gives Kent County $6,000 per student for education, and at the same time gives Baltimore City's children $12,000 per pupil for education, I think that's wrong.
And you know what?
And that's exactly what I talked about. It had nothing to do with your budget. It had to do with the way that the formula looks at Kent County as a rich county when we have 60% of our kids on assisted lunches.
57, yeah, 57%.
80 or 90% of our land is zoned agriculture instead of industrial or commercial or something that generates a lot of. I just think that the formula mistreats us, and that's the only position that I was trying to get clear, bring up.
Right, but I understand there was some discussion about staffing and adding additional positions.
No way. Not from me.
Never discussed
We
that.
have not, nor will I ever tell you how to do your job. It's your job to determine the staffing, whether it's needed, whether it's not needed, but to give the explanation that you don't have enough money. Now, when I see that there's money available, I might argue that. But as far as whether you think something is needed or not needed, or how to run your schools, I have nothing to do with it, nor will I ever.
Okay, so I think that all kind of plays into the same conversation, though, because do I need, are there things that we could do to...
Or what time? That's entirely up to you. You'll never hear me say that we need this or we need that. I'm just telling you that that's your job, and I'll never tell you that. And I will never tell anybody that I think certain positions are needed or not needed.
The only thing we did say last week in defense of everything is that if there is a need and the finances aren't there, then it's your job to come to us and the board's job to come to us and say we need more money and justify why you need more money to hire those individuals. Because it was a big conversation the last couple of weeks. That's the only thing that we probably went out and said about staffing. If there's a need and you can't meet your budget, can't put it in your budget, then yes, then that's when you come back to us to have that discussion.
That's the same position we take with every department head that we fund. If county roads, we approve their budget. If something unexpected comes along mid-year and they come in and make a good argument to why they need it over and above their budget, that's when we deal with it.
Okay, so in this year's budget was approved, so you can see all the additional positions that have been added.
So which document? There were two that Jane sent over,
Yeah. Right.
and those were the ones that came over. So which one would you like?
The first one that shows what we shared with the board members, which at the last board meeting was estimated.
Horizontal or vertical? Okay.
Landscape?
Yeah, that's where we went through our expenditures today. Board.
So this was the ones that just came in?
They came in. So we'll have to just refer to those hard copies at the moment.
Oh, I
No, that's okay. We'll fix it, but.
We want.
okay.
All right, so this was the approved budget, and you'll see down at the very bottom, the rectangle talks about where we were at and where our projected and what our expenditures to date are. So you'll see where we expect the variances to be based on what we know today with regard to our budget. There is some savings and substitutes. We never really know for sure whether we're going to exceed. We did put more money into this year's budget in substitutes because we've always expended and exceeded what was budgeted. So we decided that let's try to be more realistic about what we need in substitutes, but it doesn't, there are given days when we don't have substitute coverage. So will we expend all of it at the end of the year? It's hard to say, so it's kind of a guess. Yeah, exactly. Transportation, we have not fully, we've only been doing it, we had a contractor for 1 month, but then we took it over. So we really don't have enough information to say whether there's going to be a cost savings or not. Jane is going to be collecting information on, because we have pretty much an even spread. We've got half contractor and half district-owned buses. So we're going to keep 2 sets of data so we can see which is more cost-effective.
Since half the buses fueled at Public Works, do you find that there's a fuel savings at all for that cost savings?
There is definitely, and then with the exercise tax too, that we can file for that too.
Yeah, so that's definitely going to help. But we don't have a full month yet of data to actually say, yes, it's going to.
And if you own your own fleet, at some point you can put a fuel depot at wherever you're going to keep the buses at that.
Right.
Okay, and then you get all those same savings that
Right.
you get county level.
Right. The other thing that we haven't really factored into this is maintenance. We have to maintain our own buses too. So there's going to be fuel, there's going to be tires, there's going to be oil changes. There's going to be some things obviously that are covered under warranty, but we're not going to know for sure.
Did you give yourself an allocation for tires and things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really why we brought the $175,000 in, was that'll help us pay our lease payments for the year. But we really don't know, what it's going to be long term. So to say I'm not going to need that contingency or what I don't know. I don't have enough information to demonstrate, what's going to happen with the transportation budget. And I don't know whether we've overshot, we've undershot. We don't have enough information there. If you'll look at the bottom, the very bottom, it shows you all of the different positions that we've added in this year since the budget was approved by the Board of Commissioners and also by the Board of Ed. We added, at Galena, we had to add a pre-kindergarten teacher, a kindergarten IA, and a special ed IA. That was based on an IEP. At Garnett, we added a kindergarten instructional assistant. At Rock Hall, we added a kindergarten IA. Initially, we have a policy, if you will, kind of a procedure that to keep the IAs, there has to be a basic enrollment to warrant and to justify keeping the IA. So technically, that's ours. And so it's not state mandated at all. As a matter of fact, if you talk to other counties, they've pretty much removed all kindergarten IAs. You rarely see kindergarten IAs, unless it's in Queen Anne's. I think the decision is if it exceeds 25 students, then they will add an IA. I asked how often they do that, and they said, well, they do have classes that are larger, so then they'll add an IA. We pretty much said, okay, if you've got one class that's over, then go ahead and add the IA to that particular classroom, and then, if you will, stack the classroom. In Rock Hall, they didn't necessarily need the done without the IA, but the principal argument for keeping the IA, so we said, you know what, we're still trying to get used to consolidation. We don't really know how that's going to affect us, so we said, yes, we would go ahead and put the IA. We also added a substitute instructional assistant in the 2nd grade. At this point, it's not an employee, so it's not going to draw on our our benefits and all of those things, but we do have a permanent, if you will, substitute in the class to support. About 3 weeks ago.
Assistants.
Yes. Yeah. And then we also had a long-term sub that was in the other 2nd grade class. She's since returned. We also have a substitute that is helping with managing some of the students that are requiring a little bit of extra help. Yes. And that was added, and I think that substitute has now been hired full-time in another class, because we have a teacher that was moved from the classroom into the Title I interventionist position. So I don't know what the status is, if they've hired somebody else or they're going to be bringing in someone else for that long term. I don't know. At Kent County High School, we also added an English teacher. And as you'll recall, when Ms. Spurrier and I came and presented to the Board of Commissioners, the LNB had been paying for the truancy social worker, and then those funds were basically, the grant went away or it didn't fit in. I don't know what the rationale was in terms of why that position was removed, but we went ahead and funded it last year out of our own budget for half-time. We've now increased it to a full-time, and so we had to add in the other half-time position.
My understanding is that the state grants are, this is temporary, with the expectation that the local government will pick it up if it wants to continue.
Right. So, unfortunately, and last year we didn't really know for sure, so we picked it up half-time last year, and now we've got it full-time this year. Mary Jones is the one who's filling that position. So that was quite a few additional expenditures that we hadn't counted on. The other thing that has affected us this year is there was a safety in schools. It was a social worker, a behavioral, I don't know if it was a counselor that was helping us with regard to substance abuse and trauma. And my understanding is that position was cut this year as well. And I guess it was a grant also. I don't know. It was a grant that you all had funded internally through the LMB, and my understanding is that has gone away. So the individual that was helping us in the middle school and the high school for the substance abuse, she was a social worker, my understanding is, and a behavioral counselor. That's no longer available, and so that's kind of hurt us a little bit as well. But you'll see there's not a lot of flexibility in this budget itself. I know there was some question about our class sizes. I did run a copy of all of our class sizes, and the average class size in our... I understood that there was a question about that. No? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I would just say that the average class size for our elementaries is 18.5 students per class. Now, granted, there are some classes that are over, and there's at least one grade level in every elementary that is above 20, but every other class is below 20. So they're not, yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't know whether that's a good number or a bad number.
Yeah.
That's not
Okay.
something I get involved in.
All right.
But my one question, all these changes that you said that you've made and the additions, I mean, you're not insinuating that that's going to come out of that fund balance, or isn't that within?
That's supported within this budget here.
Yes, that's what's within
Right.
your budget.
Right. So additional positions within this budget, I think, I'm just trying to demonstrate it'd be pretty tight. It's going to be pretty tight right now as far as what we're forecasting for this year.
Is it fair to say that based on this, with all those positions added, you're still thinking you're going to come in $42,000 favorable in instructional salaries?
Yes.
Protection?
Right.
So you're able to absorb all that within the existing?
Yeah.
Take these positions out?
We had a number of retirements.
Oh, okay.
So-
So it was kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of a backfill kind of thing.
Okay.
So we were able, yeah, we put positions in. Yeah.
Makes sense with the
Right.
numbers.
And 42,000 with regard to that, again, we don't know who may walk in the door in terms of additional students. I mean, that'd be nice. But we also have instances in which we may have a student that requires additional help with IEPs or whatever, so we may have to add additional positions. We have to have that flexibility with regard to adding additional positions. Again, you'll see, and we talked about this as well, the non-public students that could come in at any point in time would have to come out of any of this. And that can run anywhere from, if it's a day placement, it could run anywhere from $30,000 to a boarding placement. It could be all the way up to $100,000. So it just really depends.
And do these figures take into account, and I'm not sure what the timing is going to be, but at some point there are going to be building costs, I guess, that shift away from you and unfortunately shift to us. Are we projecting for that to happen in 18 or 19, or is any of that taken into account?
Bill, within this budget is keeping all operational costs for the full year.
Same, okay. So then you would
There would be some savings, yes. At this point, we're still having to manage the buildings and pay all of the utilities and whatnot for that.
timeline.
Yeah. Right.
Do you have a timeline as far as?
We actually have our facilities strategic planning committee that's meeting. Our next meeting is on the 27th. We talked about surplusing buildings. And we had a meeting with the Board of Ed in terms of a work session. And at this point, no decisions have been made with regard to recommendations, but it looks like the feeling was that we would surplus Millington, and then the Board of Ed would move to Wharton, and we would surplus the Rock. So that's. I think that there was a lot of discussion about, what would happen to us in the future in terms of what would we do if we had more reduction in declining enrollment, and I think everybody felt like maintaining and retaining all ownership of our buildings at Wharton made sense for what may happen in the future of where we might end up having to go. So I don't have a final determination, but I think the plan would be to make that decision by February.
And I think just generally, I think if I'm remembering, just for our planning purposes, because we're starting to work on our projections, was it about $200,000 a building? Is that the figure I remember?
We actually put in $300,000, but will it take all of that? I don't know. But it was for minimal costs for, and that included if in fact we have to move the buses, where would we move them, and what area are we going to have to prepare for the buses to be?
Well, but the cost that would be transferred to the county for the maintenance of the buildings that were surplused, I guess, was what I was. So if we surplus Millington, there would be operating costs that would come out of your budget that would go into ours for the electric and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's the $200,000 a building.
Oh.
That's the...
I think that's high.
That's high? Okay.
That's high.
I can't remember. I know we were...
I think for the Board of Ed, actually, that's one of our most energy-efficient buildings because of the geothermal. I believe that the building costs for the Board of Ed are about like $45,000 a year. So it's very. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that's correct. I was going to say, wait a minute. It's $45,000 a year. For Wharton, I believe is closer to 100, like maybe 110 or something like that. I think similar. It's all similar. The only thing with Millington is what the grass cutting is a bear. In terms of that's our one of the largest expenses we have at Millington, huh? Make-hay. Can we get a reduction in our taxes? No, I'm just kidding. No, we don't. I'm just kidding. Anyways, but we did kind of forecast, and we had a next projection in terms of the fund balance, talking as we move forward for FY 18 and 19, because we were planning on utilizing, we were I mean, we're trying to be fiscally responsible and setting aside the $397,000 towards FY19. So you'll see that that is the next slide that we have. What we did was we just said everything would be flat. So we're saying we're still getting the same amount of revenue from the state, same amount of money from the county, and just demonstrating that everything was going to be the same. The $218,000, isn't that?
That's the other. So it's other things like gate receipts, interest, things like that.
Right.
But we, in revenue, we did reflect less 26 students, and we had done a projection similar in January, and of a negative 130,000 that we would see as a decrease in revenue there.
Right. So
If we take a look at 19, then the revenue minus the projected expenditures, assuming we added salary and benefits, and the benefits would also include any health care increases in pension and FICA. So the revenue projected, and this is draft, will be $26,475,155. You subtract that from expenditures of $27,695.41. That puts a negative $1.2 million in there. We get to add back in that fund balance that was unassigned.
the $397,168.
And then go ahead and set aside that $175 for right now for transportation because it's still uncertain. And then that target fund balance to keep in that. So the ending projected fund balance right now in FY19 is going to be a deficit of almost 1.5.
Right. Well, essentially, that's what we're projecting will be the shortfall, would be for FY19.
Now, I will say this, that this, we try very hard to
Save.
anywhere we can, contracts come up, negotiate.
And we're doing that. We've done a really good job. I mean, we put out a bid for our gas or propane, and we got a favorable bid. We plan to do the same thing with grass cutting. Any place that we can look at in terms of piggybacking and saving, that's what we're trying to do. I know that there's a lot of question in terms of, can you add more positions? Can we do that? I mean, I would love to add more positions. One of the things that I would say is I would love to add additional social workers. I think that a lot of our students come with social emotional needs. And this is not just new to Kent County. It happened in my previous district. It happens in I thought it would just happen there. But no, it happens here. And as a matter of fact, Ms. Giacomowitz just came back from an early childhood briefing, and that's what that was the conversation there, where all of the social emotional needs that our kids are coming to our schools with. So, is there a silver bullet? Is there a panacea that's going to be the answer to everything? I wish I knew that I had that answer. But I do think that connection with the families and making that connection does help. Is it going to solve all the world's problems? I don't know that will do it. But if I added a social worker today, I could fill.
If you identify there is a need, structural need, ask.
I'm asking.
Gotta come with the dollars and cents.
A social worker usually runs us $50,000 to $60,000 with salary and benefits. And so, I'm asking. Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions you have with regard to our budget? I would like to brag a little bit about our Libraries to Code grant that we had. Our middle school applied for a grant with Google, and we were the only representative from Maryland that was selected for the grant. We were the only public library that was selected from Maryland. It's an opportunity for our students to learn how to code, and they will be coding micro controllers to solve a problem with the business. I think that the county offices, there's some of your departments that are going to participate with us. The Chestertown, the town hall is going to participate as well. We pushed it out. If you know of anyone or any business that would like to be involved, it's an after-school program for our middle school students, and it's an opportunity for them to gain real-world experience in terms of their future careers, possibly.
We have our economic.
I sent it to her as well. She knows.
You ever think about, on not do it right away because it's kind of expensive to do it, as a process of exchanging incandescent bulbs for LEDs?
That has been brought up through ASBO with Johnson's Controls, so it would be something that would be on the future horizon, definitely.
Because we just did a bunch of upgrades to a couple of schools with lighting, so now there's something else that's making better than that from 2 years ago?
I know what happened in the past was the lighting that automatically switches off.
Motion. That one.
Well, the only problem with incandescence is a problem. One of the harder part is your fluorescence, because that requires a change in your palace, and that's where the expense comes in. But the incandescent bulbs are easily changed to
Right.
that's for a very
And
long time.
the other thing I wanted to brag about is that we have signed on to Vision to Learn. That is a program that is new to Maryland. My understanding is we're the first county to sign up for it. Lions Club, and it really is to help our most disadvantaged students, those that can't afford an eye exam and glasses. Most of the time, the Lions will help with the glasses, but they don't necessarily pay for the exam itself. So a student,
The exam they offer is pass or fail.
right.
And then it stops. So
Yeah,
you can go-
and they have to go in and get an optometrist or someone to give them the vision test. This is actually a mobile van that comes in. They have optometrists. They come in. It was actually, I think it was in Delaware, and they're targeting us because 4 of our 5 schools are Title I now. And so they feel like we're a perfect candidate for that. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity for our kids. We can identify which students will potentially need glasses. They will come in and they will they will provide the exam, and the students get to pick out their glasses. Some people made some comments about, well, what if the parents don't like the glasses? And that has happened on occasion. They will allow the child to switch the glasses to ones that the parents like, but they really want the students to be able to buy in, to pick the glasses, because they feel like the kids pick them, they will wear them. So that's a really neat opportunity for our kids to participate, and I think that we've tried really hard to think about programs that we can bring in place to create an equitable playing field for all of our students, because we do have a lot of students that come from low economic status families, and they don't have the resources to purchase.
If they monitor what the education of that child is before
Yeah.
classes, and see if it actually changes, like statistics say it does change significantly once because kids go through school just, like I say, without the means. They think they need glasses, but they don't tell anybody. But this way, it actually puts them in their hands, and then you can see how their academics change,
Right.
hopefully to the good.
Right. And then the last thing I thought you might want to hear about is Kirwan Commission, because I know that's a conversation. I am actually the legislative chair for the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland. So had an opportunity to spend a day in Annapolis and talk to our legislators. There's a couple of really good things that came out of that day that I think would be beneficial for you to hear. Number one, I had an opportunity to talk with Delegate Maggie McIntosh. She is the delegate that sponsored House Bill 684 that provided us with some funding for and state aid for declining enrollment and also for universal pre-K. What I told her was, in her efforts to help Kent County and of course she is really, she's the delegate for Baltimore City. In the efforts to help a lot of school districts with declining enrollment, we actually saw a decrease from what we received the year before. If you'll recall, we received $500,000 in FY17. This year we only received $214,000. So we actually got hurt in that regard. We saw half of what we had expected. So I told her that the reason why it affected us that way was because our numbers are so small. I mean, we have high per pupil costs because it costs us the same to bus 10 students on a bus as it does another county that might have the bus full with 80 students. Costs us the same to heat a building of 300 kids as it does for a school of 600 kids. So, I mean, our per pupil costs are higher. So I told her I asked her if she would consider making an amendment to the bill. And I spoke at great length with Delegate Jacobs. He agrees with that. He said he'd like to help us try to push it forward, so I wanted to share this with you as well. Looking at it as an either-or, whichever one is greater. Like coming up, I asked for, could we have state aid of $1 million? I mean, I just went out there and said, please, give us $1 million in state aid. But if the difference of declining enrollment and universal pre-K results in more than $1 million, then give us whichever one is more. She said, I didn't realize I'd hurt Kent County. I'm happy to look at that. And Delegate Jacobs seemed to think that if she promised that she would, he felt like she would. So hopefully that's a positive connection. Delegate Lutke came and visited Kent County. He is part of the Ways and Means Committee, the Education Committee, and he spent a whole morning looking at our schools and talking to us about our unique challenges. So I'm hoping that will pay off for us as well. But we also got to listen to members of the Kirwan Commission, and there are 3 things that I think are important for you to hear. I heard this, and they were very clear that the Kirwan Commission has no authority to impose a local increase in funding to school districts. That is not their charge. They are not that is not anything that's within their purview. The second thing that they made it very clear to us during the legislative day is what they're looking at is state aid grants and grants with accountability. So if they, for instance, come up with universal pre-K, there would be an opportunity for schools to apply for the money, but there would be accountability to receive that money. So they haven't come up with all of the initiatives yet, but all of that, they're looking at increasing state funding, not decreasing state funding. And I heard that time and time again. So I thought I'd share that as well.
That's an aggregate increase, but very specifically, not saying that they have any authority over local jurisdictions, but they don't. However, if they zero out state aid to a particular jurisdiction, that jurisdiction has an incentive to make up that difference.
But that would result in a decrease in state aid. And what they said was there would be no decrease in state aid. That's what I heard. And I heard that from multiple of the members of the commission. And then the last thing was the teacher career ladder. That is something that they're really focused on, as well as universal pre-K. So that's what I have with regard to that. So we have one last thing, and that's our budget adjustments.
Before we get into that, I would like to just make another suggestion. Is when William was saying, if you think there's other positions that you think need to be added, and William said put it in writing, based on the last 7 years that there's always been money left after the year runs out, my suggestion would be that you, and I'm not telling you to do it, it's entirely your choice, is to decide whether you want the position, go ahead and run it by the commissioners, but then wait before we add to it. Let's see when we get to the end of the school year if there isn't money left over already to pay for it without just adding something addition to that to the budget. Let's see if we need it when we get to the end of the school year.
because for the last 7 years, we've always ended up with money left over on the table, so maybe the same thing would happen this year. And you have said yourself that we're not far enough into it for everything to shake out yet. We don't have clear numbers of where we're going, how much savings we got. So when we get to the end of the year, we'll have a much clearer picture.
Well, in January, we ought to have a clear picture of what the reduction will be from the state for the declining enrollment. We're down 28 students. So we'll have, usually that information comes out in January. So I think we should have a pretty good idea of what that might mean for the county as far as what your reduction will be to us, or responsibility for MOE will be for.
Just by the numbers, almost 280,000 just from us.
It's if you look at what the projection would be, that wasn't added into the numbers we put up there. We could see about another reduction of $400,000 going into FY19. So that would add to that number. Yeah, state and local funding.
Now, in the last couple of years, we've held the local funding flat, so we haven't.
Yeah, we saw. Right, we saw the additional funding that we got from the county for last year was about $60,000 as far as increase of MOE. So your holding constant meant that you funded $60,000 above MOE for this current year.
But it was still better than going with the state law where it says we should have reduced it.
Correct. Right. I'm just saying that's what it resulted in. So we have budget adjustments.
We're here tonight for approval on budget adjustment 1 for restricted and budget adjustment number 2 for unrestricted. In summary, the restricted fund, we saw some changes with our restricted grants, and those are carryovers from 17 into 18. We don't have those numbers until we actually close out the fiscal year. So that's what those changes are under the restricted portion here. And the grants that were affected were teacher quality, 21st Century, Perkins, Wellness, Judy Center, Title I, Infants and Toddler, MA, Local Flex, IDEA Part B, and IDEA Part C, and parentally placed. So that's up there, not the restricted one. You see net increase of $662,590, and that's under our grants.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moving second to approve. This is restrict 1? This is the first one, right?
Correct.
All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
The next one we bring before you is the unrestricted. Since the approval of the FY18 budget, there were some changes. One was the 2 parking lots for CUSAV of $150,000. There was a revised award under the second supplemental grant. That was a decrease. And then we also had MSDE non-reoccurring for that tile floor. We had to go ahead and adjust for that as well. So under unrestricted number 2, there's an increase of $67,133.
So moved.
Second.
Parker moving second to approve unrestricted number 2 budget adjustment for FY18. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Okay. Thank you.
During the public comment. Public Works Director.
Mars.
Hang on, pretty good.
Okay.
Guess the first thing on there is the letter to Secretary Grumbles.
Look good.
We're good.
Do you need a motion to support the letter to Secretary Grumps?
Second.
Properly moving second to execute the letter to Secretary Grumbles pertaining to our Wharton wastewater treatment plant and other issues like the next landfill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And the second thing to follow that up with is there was a conference call last week with the staff from Secretary Grumble's office regarding this Wharton Lagoon situation. And we discussed it in length, and there was a couple options that they threw out there that might be a cheaper option to bring it in compliance with the permit that we need to do with. And I've looked at them, and there is some funding available possibly depending on which route we go. I do need to sit down and talk to Macron about that because they've already did the PER on that project. We might need to tweak it or turn it a little bit to make it in additional so we can get funding for it. So there is a couple different options we can take, and once we come up with this options, we'll get back to you to get approval for the application.
Is one of them to extend irrigation?
No.
That's not one option.
No, it's actually doing some adjustment with the lagoons, adding aeration, possible filtration. The problem is the plant itself is doing great. It's treating the wastewater almost to ENR technology. However, it's the recirculation of the lagoon to discharge during the winter months that we're seeing to be having problems with. Obviously, because of algae blooms, it's causing an increase in total spent solids, and both one because of the yeast that are landing in the lagoon, as well as other environmental concerns. But so that's the issue we got to deal with. So we're looking at ways to do that, whether it be add aeration, whether it be add a filter, whether it be some type of combined flow.
Have we ever tried the guns that like farmers use, the air guns, gas guns, to try and break them from using? Because you shoot geese enough on a pond, in just natural, they leave. Have we tried that?
No, we have not.
It's not. It does not hurt them. It doesn't do any of that. Just makes a lot of damn noise.
But
Farmer might
remember,
have something to say. about
remember where our lagoon is situated? Mm-hmm. You know how far homes are from that lagoon? So we start firing off cannons up there to the lagoon. You're going to get
1.7 million. They're going to call Ronnie. He started this.
Anyhow, we need to come up with one of these options here, and then, like I said, I'll be back to you because we got to fill out an application, and that process begins sometime in December or January. I'm not sure which, and there is some funds available from the BRF fund or the SRF fund. So, and being we are a disadvantaged county, we should be able to get loan forgiveness if we have to go with the SRF fund. So,
How are we considered a disadvantaged county?
that's how they have us set up for the MA.
We were just talking about this, the state school formula, and we're a rich county. Now, somebody's got to make up their mind whether we're disadvantaged or rich. I'm not sure. I guess it's whatever suits the people that's,
It does.
I don't understand.
If it gets us free money,
And to support Commissioner Short's idea, maybe we should ask Aberdeen Proving Ground to come in.
I would rather try this first than go into cannons. So, but anyhow, I'll keep you apprised of that situation, and as time allows, we'll move forth and hopefully get it resolved. The second thing on the agenda is actually a sewer allocation and water request from Mr. O'Connor, who lives down to Fairleigh. He's got a property down there. It's about 2 acres, a little larger. He wants to subdivide it and needs a water and sewer allocation for that property.
Motion to approve.
Properly moved second to approve a sewer allocation to Mr. and Mrs. O'Connor,
Subject to all other agencies.
subject to fulfilling all the other regulation requirements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously.
And the next thing on there is the request to continue to using Gridell as a engineering service for design of the Turner's Creek landing. We've run into some problems up there because of the water depth and because of some of the structural complication with how close it sits, the tiebacks sit close to the ground, and it's going to take the specialty of an engineering firm to do that. And Gradell was always the one, or was one used on the granary to do all the subsurface and engineering on that. So he's got the background and knowledge and a lot of the information that we can use to do that.
And I read that that's money's budgeted already.
Yes, yes. So, and his,
Second.
Morgan moved in second, to continue using the service of Gradell and Associates for structural engineering services to design and prepare documents for a replacement bulkhead at the Turner's Creek Public Landing. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. With a cost not to exceed $24,200.
that's the contract price, yes. A couple other notice, I want to notify you of. One, we had a leak up to Millington the other day, yesterday. We got it fixed this morning. It was actually where a hydrant connected to a fitting. It actually cracked. I don't know whether the ground settled or what, but it cracked at the joint. So that's taken care of. That's, and also just to notify you the easement situation with the pump station up to Georgetown is being resolved as we speak. It's shouldn't have no problem moving forth with it from this point on. So I talked to the owner's son today, and everything's going to be taken care of.
So the email that you sent us, the last email you sent us, where we were going to change the project and then possibly allow them to come back in at a later date if they got straight, that's been changed.
Well, I left it today with Ralph that if they get back to us, the dollar figure's gone. They're going to take care of that, no cost to the county whatsoever. If they get back to us with a signed easement before Christmas, then we can still include, we're good to go. If not, then it's subject to maybe being pulled out of the project, so. That he guaranteed me that he'd be back, there wouldn't be no problem, so.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Unless you have something.
Okay, a couple things. The first are the financial statements for the first quarter. So our revenues came in at $30,075,000, which was just about at the target of our budget, $6,341,000 favorable. And we'll look at those variances in a second. On the expenditure side, in the first quarter we spent $12,392,000, which was $509,000 less than we anticipated with our budget. So bottom line, through the first quarter, we're $516,000 favorable. It is the first quarter of the year, and there's a lot of timing differences probably in these numbers, so just say that as as a caution. If we look at the major revenue variances that contributed to the $6,341,000 variances, our property taxes are slightly favorable. We've seen some increases since the beginning of the year. Our highway user revenue is down. That's mostly due to a delay in the receipt of the revenue. The one thing that was kind of a little concerning here is we're starting to see the recordation tax and the property transfer tax tick down from last year. See a rebound in that. Those variances were unfavorable by $27,000 and $17,000.
This is the first quarter, which is the period in which most houses are bought and sold.
If you remember, we had a strong finish last year, and we were hoping that trend would continue into the first quarter, but it seems like those numbers have slowed.
I talked to several realtors just the other night at the chamber, and they're all just swamped. And they're like, the inventory's getting pretty shaky as far as how much we have out there to use. I know, in just for instance, our development, I mean, we've had multiple homes that never sold prior to us, and then now their property values are going up. It's so realtors are saying they're busy.
Well, this is through September, so if the realtors were busy and the closings are in October and November, we haven't seen those results yet. So it could be that hopefully it's coming. That's all good news. And we had a favorable variance of $41,000 in the sale of equipment and interest income. So those were the factors that contributed to the revenue variance. On the expenditure side, for the first quarter, we've seen about $140,000 favorable variance in salaries and benefits. The largest part of that is due to turnover. We're also seeing a favorable variance in our seasonal wages. Most of that is due to weather. And we had a savings in our election workers. On the operating side, you can see that through the first quarter, we're seeing about just under $300,000 of a favorable variance. See the department that's incurring in. But again, I would caution that's the most volatile of our categories due to timing. So even though it's looking good through the first quarter, we could still see some of that come back. We really haven't spent any contingency funds in the first quarter, so that's $100,000 favorable. And we had other unfavorable variances of $27,000. So that's what makes up the $509,000 favorable variance. Questions? Okay, if we look at the water wastewater statements, again, the first quarter results, our revenues are slightly unfavorable, about $10,000, and most of that is in water service charges. On the expenditure side, we're coming in just about at budget.
We might have just made that up today with that allocation, because that's just what they...
We'll have to thank, that's true. I'll have to thank Mr. Morris. On the expenditure side, they're pretty much at budget. We're showing a $5,662,000 unfavorable variance. And if you look at the next page, you can see the categories. We mostly are seeing overruns in chemicals, sewer agreement fees, and others. As far as the subsidy goes, it's running slightly higher than budget because of the increased expenditures. It's at 23.2% as opposed to the budget of 21%. Any question on our wastewater? Okay. The next two pages show our capital projects. The first one's the water wastewater projects. We have a total of $3,680,000 in water wastewater projects. See where how much has been spent so far this year. We spent just about $225,000. So they're in progress. And on the government capital projects, we have an annual budget of $4,079,000. We've spent just a little over $1 million so far in the first quarter. And so we still do anticipate all those projects happening this year. Questions? No? Okay. Okay. I have a couple more items. Okay, the next one is on the 2018 MACO Legislative Committee. You have in front of you a recommendation for a member, or a nomination for a member and an alternate to the committee.
I volunteer to be I have to be there anyway.
Yeah.
Since I'm chair of that committee. Does she want to come too?
Does that mean you have to move it, or?
Alternate down is,
You have a note about an alternate who is,
well, you could, either Billy or I probably could do it until Shelley gets ready.
okay.
Whichever one. It doesn't matter. If either one of us is available and William can't make it, just give one of us.
Okay.
Yeah. Work.
Okay. Do we need a motion for, no?
No.
Okay, the next item is regarding a $5,000 grant that we have. This is a request to send a letter to the granting agency so that the agency that's providing the services could be paid directly.
So moved.
Second.
Already moved and second to approve an authorization to the Maryland Department of Aging to pay Upper Shore Aging, Inc. directly. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously. It's just a $5,000 grant.
I'm sorry, I'm out of order here.
Two appointments. One to local management board.
And one, two,
And
one.
one to Mid-Shore Mental Health. So moved both positions.
Second.
Probably moving second to approve the recommended appointments to the local management board as well as the Mid-Shore Mental Health Board. All those in favor say aye. Motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay? Do you have any?
No.
Okay, anything from the news media? Okay. Shelley Schofield. Public schools comments.
That's okay. Here you go, Shelley. Thank you. Okay. Let's try this. Hi, thank you. I have to go back to when the superintendent and the board was here, and I would like to go back. I know no one has it up in front, so I want to read a paragraph that was on the audit report, and then just since this is being recorded, it's on page 11, and then I'll ask my question. So it's on page 11 of the audit report. And it says, the board has no formal fund balance policy. Approval from county government is required before any expenditure can be made from this unreserved portion. The county government has recommended that our targeted fund balance should be around $500,000. Unfortunately, fund balance funds have been used to budget for revenue shortfalls and in subsequent budget year to offset projected expenditures. At the current rate of fund balance usage, the balance will be exhausted within 2 to 3 years. So my question around that is why the fund balance isn't being spent when there's the case of emergencies, and as the commissioners, especially Commissioner Pickram has said tonight, if you need money for something such as a staff position, a social worker, bring that to the commissioners. We'll review it and likely approve. So I understand keeping a fund balance for emergencies, but it looks like based on this last sentence at the current rate of fund balance usage, the balance will be exhausted within 2 to 3 years. It looks like that's just considered part of the budget. So can someone explain to me, the superintendent or someone from the Board of Education, what was meant in this audit report by that paragraph?
Well, if you want a response from the Board of Education or the superintendent, you should go to their meetings.
That's why I was hoping I could ask while they were here.
Well, that's in their purview. This is a county commissioners meeting.
Okay.
County commissioners. Now, I'll tell you about one of the things about that, the statement that county government has recommended fund value around $500,000. That's inaccurate.
Okay.
The discussion was very different than that this past spring. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if the school board submits a request that it will be approved. It will be analyzed like all other requests, and we'll come up with the best decision. It may be a requirement to use other funds from other areas.
So this is the first meeting that I've been to where they have presented their year-end budget and audit report. At the beginning of the year, when they present a proposed budget that the county, I assume, agrees to that budget or approves it, does it look similar to that as far as the categories that the
Do we just give a lump sum?
Lump sum, yeah.
Categories in the audit and in the budget are consistent.
Okay.
So if that answers your question.
Thank you. Consolidation School World. And I also am a character counts coach in Kent County, and I do 2 classes, 2 grades, 2nd grade and 5th grade at Rock Hall Elementary. The 2nd grade class, there are 2 2nd grade classrooms. I never know what I'm walking into in that room. And I do that 2nd grade at 1 o'clock, 5th grade at 2 o'clock. Oftentimes, I am frazzled beyond words when I leave that second grade classroom because there are approximately 5 children in there that won't let me teach or instruct in a 15-minute character counts course because they're just so disruptive. Meanwhile, there's that other group of kids that are ready and willing and able and want to interact and be part of the curriculum. So we're post-consolidation. When I talk to the staff at the school, it's clear that they need help. So I also go to, as just a community member, I also go to the strategic facilities planning meetings, and I listen what they're going to do or potentially might do with these buildings, and down the road what they may do for building new schools or new roofs or things that need to be done down the road. So anyone can attend those. They are open to the public. So I hear some dollar figures being thrown around, and I'm concerned. And I wasn't at the last Board of Education meeting, but I am going to be at all the others. I'm really concerned where the money's being spent. I know with the county commissioners, I have good faith in this county as a whole that if we need something for our children, we're going to step up. When classrooms need things, people volunteer and buy them. I have a short story. My son this year needed a special kind of shoe. He needed a pair of Brooks running shoes. It just came to the point where I had bought 3 different pair of shoes that I thought were good, and none of them were good for his feet. And I told my husband, I got to go and spend like $130 for a pair of shoes. He said, we can't afford to spend $130 for a pair of his shoes. I said, I've already spent that on 3 pair of shoes, and none of them fit right. He's like, all right, let's go out. We'll make it work. One foot was different size than the other foot. He needed the stability that gave him, the correct support, all of that. When I explained it, he said, we'll make it work. If the school board explains what we need to our commissioners, I have no doubt we're going to be able to make it work. So when we don't have a good explanation of what we need, and we have the county frustrated at the commissioners because we don't understand how the process works, and all we hear is we need more money, more money, more money from the county, it's frustrating to me. And when I'm in a school with second graders and 5 of them have tears in their eyes at any given time, and we're in November and school started, help me out, after Labor Day, I'm frustrated as a parent. I don't know that social worker is the right thing. I'm not trained in this. But what I do know in my profession, social workers just get involved in everyone's lives. I know teachers impact kids' lives every day. Maybe they need someone who can train the teachers how to deal with the kids. Maybe they need behavioral specialists instead of social workers. Maybe we need some assessments going on in those schools and our school district to find out what we really need in a post-assessment world. Maybe we don't need to spend any more money yet on new buildings or anything that's not necessary until we have a good, healthy environment for all of our kids. So I promise I'll be at the Board of Ed meetings. I didn't mean to be offensive. I wanted to ask when they were here, but thank you for helping me learn that the process is they give you a big number. They say this is what we need, and if you don't understand what all that is for, all you have to know is here's what we gave you last time, here's what we're going over MOE. If they don't say, I need these Brooks tennis shoes for all these kids and here's why, you can't give it to them. But if they say, I need these Brooks for these second graders, and I need these $200 shoes for all these high schoolers, and I need this because they're a different way, then you're going to find the money. So what I would like to say to the Board of Ed and the superintendent is explain it to the county commissioners. Thank you.
Rest assured that it's not just the dollars and cents. We do look at the results too. It's very, very important that we have to us, I speak for my colleagues, that we have a successful school system in all aspects. This is why it's important that, again, we're not educators in this particular case, but all 3 of us are parents too. There's Nathan. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thanks. I always have some notes, and I just came from a whole program on being grateful. One of the things we covered was being grateful to be here, where we live in these beautiful surroundings. Another one was to be careful about the use of words and language, and to use beautiful words. So in gathering my thoughts, I was reflecting on 350 years of history here. It's more than 350 years here, but I'm a Quaker. Our ship arrived to Kent County in 1668. And I've been thinking about the Quaker meeting where I live in Quaker Neck, which was founded in 1698, and the suffering of those people. So I thought I'd bring out Joanne Hansen tonight. She's recorded by the county commissioners, the sheriff, the courts, as being tied to the whipping post at the court here, and actually it was in Yarmouth. The reason I bring that forward is because the 350 years or the 320 years since our meeting has been in Quaker Neck, there have been ongoing tensions of developing a new society. It's really a beautiful process, but it has left us here with, I think, a lot of turmoil. Expected turmoil based on histories. And so as the histories come forward, one of the things that I've brought up here at the meeting before is that this is the 50th anniversary of the desegregation of our schools, and how this week and the previous months, I guess as we go back through the years, we have ongoing issues in our schools related to history that's going on here. And I just want to bring up that what was covered in the Kent County News, I was at the meeting of the Social Action Committee at Sumner Hall, which the middle school teacher heroically showed up to. She was terrific to sit there in a room where people were feeling upset about some of the events that have been happening at the middle school. As you know, the sheriff is now going through the middle school on a regular basis. It's kind of a tense time related to schools and security in our country. I know I'm supposed to limit it to 3 minutes, so I'll get to my points. The school system needs your support, and dollars aren't going to do it, and you know that. And so, having been in similar roles, or if I was in your role, and someone said, don't spend $200 to put an ad in the Kent County News and say, our opinion is the school system gets plenty of money. Well, that's your purview. I think you should feel free to do that. But the $200 for your ad or whatever it's going to cost isn't the principal thing for me. It's that we get lost in these financial discussions and children get swept under the rug. And the system gets let off the hook. And so you're the leadership. In 1695, when Joanne Hansen got 6 lashes in front of the courthouse, and she wasn't a unique case in this county, and leading up to this history, or 50 years ago, when the federal government came in here and desegregated the schools, and then we get to this year and we have the school bus. I think you've heard some of the stuff that's taken place. We've heard some discussion of it here in this room. You all have to be the leaders in this. I can't believe that we keep having these conversations and we don't have the local leadership in the room. I mean, I know that Mr. Fithian is from Rock Hall. I'd like to see Chestertown here advocating. I'd like to see the newly elected. I know that it's there in their purviews and you're in yours and the Board of Ed's in yours. But ultimately, I want to thank you all and be grateful for you being there and whoever's going to take your place being here, because we're going to need some more clear leadership and a little bit less message management problems, because I think that's one of the biggest issues that I keep coming into contact with. I wasn't going to, I have family visit. I wasn't going to come here tonight, but I felt compelled. In fact, I felt complicit, really. Like if I didn't come, because of my complicity, in the relationship of what's happening in our schools, if I don't come and say it, then I'm not holding you accountable for the fact that really, ultimately, it rests with you. I mean, the top of the pyramid, so to speak. So I want you to take responsibility for what's happening in these schools, individually, as a group, and as a government. I want you to be a little bit more proactive. I noticed things tonight, like your contingency funds, that to me are in the budget that you could be making actions with right now that would be more outreaching for our community and would deal with some of the history, because I really don't think that until the history is being more properly brought forward in a healing way for all of us, so that the children who end up in the public school system have all of the same advantages of any other kids in this county instead of being encumbered, because that's what you keep hearing. You know, my child was encumbered this year by the 6 weeks of the school bus disaster. My kindergartner had a reintroduction to the Kent County school system that was inappropriate, and that you all directly had a role to play in that. I appreciate you very much. I'm very grateful that you all take your time to be here and serve our county, and I'm grateful for the people who came before you that did that, and I'm hopeful for who's coming next. I want to thank you all, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Let me say this first of all. 50 years ago, I was in this school system, and when the system was segregated, okay? Last class, segregated class, had graduated from Garnett High School. So I'm very sensitive to that issue. And no, I don't think anyone that I have been associated with on this board throughout the years I've been here have shirked their responsibilities or duties as far as our citizens and as far as the county is concerned, and our kids. But the kids understand that the 2,000 or so children that are in our public school system is only part of our society. We have almost 1/3 of our population that is over the age of 60. That, you know, when you say 1/3 out of the under 20,000 people here, that's a lot of folks. They're also part of our community, as is everyone else in this community. So don't think that that what we do here, we have a blind eye to what goes on in all parts of county government. I and my colleagues pay attention to a lot of things that goes on. Okay, and I would admit that I am not perfect, but I try to be Christ-like. Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Francois Sullivan. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't sign up. I didn't know if I was going to say anything tonight. I wanted to say that I am thankful for you and Dr. Couch meeting tonight and discussing the staffing needs at our schools. And I hope that the written request can be expedited and cover all of the positions that we may need. As a Galena parent, I will take the opportunity to also say that we could use some additional support as well. I think all of our schools could benefit from the type of assistance that was being discussed earlier today. So again, thank you for discussing it, and I hope that the request and the vote can be expedited. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Couch for sharing all that she's doing at the state level to try and sort of plead our case for what Kent County needs and how unbalanced and unfairly funded we are compared to other counties in Maryland. And just for a moment, since Nathan brought it up, I also attended the Social Action Committee meeting and was moved by the discussion, and I hope that we as a community can talk about it and can work together and try to make things better for everyone in our community. And I think that it is a discussion that needs to happen often, civilly, and with an understanding that it is part of what's going on in our community and that we have the opportunity to make it better. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Schofield read a statement from our audit that you said is incorrect, so it's,
No, I said it was not accurate.
okay. Well, for my purpose as a board member, can you clarify for me? Because in my mind, I have this $500,000 figure also. So I'm just saying, if it's incorrect, we need to put it on the record what the correct information is. Thank you.
Specifically, during the meeting, Dr. Couch said if I had an amount that I felt I would feel comfortable, I would say it would be $500,000. Commissioner Fithian had responded, that sounds like a great number to me. That's where that came from. Okay? That wasn't a suggestion or a requirement to have a $500,000 fund balance. It was part of the discussion. That's what came up and was understood. That's all there is. Okay? Yeah, it did.
And it is in there. I mean, that's an official document, and it's in there. Whether it was actually voted on or not, I think is what Mr. Pickering was going to do. But it's in there, and it's a live, breathing number.
Yeah. Okay. Safe.